For our last lesson of Unit 1, this is Lesson 8, we are just looking at currency conversions, so exchange rates and exchanging money from one currency to another. We're not going to look at the currency converter site in the video. That's something we'll go through in class. It's kind of cool. It just kind of shows you just up-to-date exchange rates. These are old rates that I had looked up at one point, but they're no longer accurate, and so we'll look at some current ones in class when we do that together. But as far as the video goes, let me just show you the math for what's going to take place here. So for in the first example, we're just going to go through a couple cases where you are exchanging from one currency to another, and these are the various rates that we could use. So right here, if we're going to exchange $200 to euros, when we do this, I've found that the easiest way for students to approach this is to just set up a proportion and then cross multiply. So this seems to be a pretty consistent way that works for students. So that's what we're going to do here. So when you set up your proportion, the key is simply that however you set up your first ratio, you got to set up your second ratio the same way. So in the first ratio, if you're going dollars over euros, then in your second ratio, you also have to do dollars over euros. And as long as you are consistent from the left to the right, then we should be just fine. So in this case, I'm going to have one ratio as the exchange rate and the other ratio as the actual money. So in this case, if we're going to go dollars to euros, right here we can see that $1 is going to match up with this many euros. And so there's the exchange rate that we're setting up. And since I went dollars to euros here, I got to go dollars to euros here for the real money ratio. So in this case, we had $200, and so we're looking for X amount of euros. And if we just cross multiply on that, then we have our amount of euros that would convert into. So this is how many euros we would get for our $200. So all these are going to be pretty similar here for A, B, and C, but let me just talk you through these next two. Again, if I had 1,000,000 yen and I wanted to convert those into US dollars, again, on one side you're going to have the exchange rate, and on the other side you're going to have the actual money. So on the left side, if we're looking at yen to dollars, then right here I have this many yen is lining up with this many dollars. And so there's the exchange rate that we have on one side. And since I went yen over dollars here, I got to go yen over dollars here as well. And so we're going to put the 1,000,000 yen right here to our X amount of dollars. And if we cross multiply, we get our missing amount of dollars that we would get. So that's how many dollars 1,000,000 yen would get you based on that rate. And then last one here, if we're going to go the British pounds into pesos. Again, one side we're going to do the exchange rate. So if you look at the British pounds to pesos, so right here we have this many British pounds goes with this many pesos. And so that's our exchange rate. And since we went pounds to pesos on the left, we got to do pounds to pesos on the right. And so we had 50 pounds to X amount of pesos, cross multiply, and we got our winner. For the most part, this is the way that these will come up in a test scenario for you. So this is one that you really want to pay attention to. This is no secret here. You're going to see one just like this on your test. So make sure you follow closely to what we're doing on this one. So right here we have a bank rate for $1 Australian to French francs. And they're going to give you two conversions here. And we're going to talk about these two. How do you know which one to use is really important for this problem. But they have a we buy rate and a we sell rate. And so the customer wants to exchange their 1,200 Australian dollars into French francs. And so that's going to be the first part of this question, is we got 1,200 Australian dollars into francs. How many francs will he receive? And so here's what you got to pay attention to on this one. This is the focus, is the francs. We want to know how many francs will he receive. And so right here, that's where this ratio is coming from. He has Australian dollars to some amount of French francs. Now, when you're trying to figure out which one of these numbers to use, these are always in view of the bank's point of view. And so you have to look at this as from what the bank is doing, not what the person is doing. So from the bank's point of view, and remember this is in terms of francs because that's what the question is asking for. What is the bank doing with francs? Is the bank buying francs from him, or is the bank selling francs to him? So in this case, because the person has Australian dollars and the person wants francs, that means the bank is selling him francs. And so that's how we would know to go with this one. This is the bank's point of view in view of francs. And so that's the one we're going to go with for the first scenario. So we have 1 Australian dollar to this many francs with the we sell rate. So there's the exchange ratio, and here's the real money taking place on the other side. And since we went dollars to francs on the left, we got to go dollars to francs on the right. And this is how many francs we would come up with. Always keep in mind you need to follow directions on this. Sometimes the directions will say round to the nearest integer or the nearest whole dollar, or however they word it, so pay attention to that. They might say 2 decimal places, they might say 3 sig figs. Really important that you pay attention to what this says on your test so that you answer this correctly. So for now, we're just going to do these to the nearest whole number, or the nearest integer, I should say. So this is how many francs the guy would have. He took his Australian dollars, his 1,200 Australian dollars, he exchanged them for 4,217 francs. Well, right away he says, no, I need to convert my money back into Australian dollars. And so if he were to just immediately walk right back into the bank and turn his money back around into dollars, how many Australian dollars would he now have? And so if you look at what's taking place now, you got to keep in mind that this is what the bank is doing. So this is always from the bank's point of view. And keep in mind that we already know that this 1 goes with the Australian dollars. So these numbers here must be in reference to an unknown amount of francs, and that will be consistent through the whole problem. Again, we already know the 1 goes with the Australian dollars, so these are always going to be in terms of the unknown, which is the French francs. And it's from the bank's point of view. So in this case, for scenario 2 here, he has French francs and he wants Australian dollars. So what is the bank doing with francs? The bank is now buying his French francs from him. So here's the ratio that we're going to set up. And again, if I go the 1 Australian dollar to this amount of francs from the bank's point of view, then again I have Australian dollars to francs with the real money on the other side as well. And so now if you cross multiply, this is how many Australian dollars he would get back. Let me say this one more time because this is really important, and this is usually where people mess up if they have an issue. A couple things we know from up here. One is, when I see these numbers, there's 2 things I need to know about them. One is, these are in reference to the unknown currency. I already know that the $1 goes, this 1 goes with the Australian dollars, which means that my unknown is French francs. So these are, in this problem, must be in reference to francs. And the second thing I know is, it's always from the bank's point of view. So these are, the bank is either buying francs or the bank is selling francs. And so that's always the way we're looking at these within this problem. So again, what we're seeing right here in this part of the problem is the guy has francs and he wants Australian dollars. So the bank is going to buy his francs and then sell him the Australian dollars. And so that's why we're using this rate that you see here. Here's what he now has. So what is the bank's commission? Somewhere along the line, the bank had to make money on this. It's never an even exchange. The bank is not doing this for free. They will always make money when they exchange currencies, always. And so if we look at what took place, oftentimes what students will do wrong on this part of the test is they will subtract right here and say, oh, the bank made this much money. Well, you can't subtract 2 different types of currencies. This is francs and this is Australian dollars. So I can't combine 2 different types of currency. I need to be apples to apples here. So if I take a look, the guy started with $1,200. He now has this many dollars. That's what I need to subtract to see how much money he lost and how much money the bank made. So the bank made 27 Australian dollars.